All right, welcome back to Rickets Reef. This is just kind of an update on the lighting dilemma that I had and why I had the dilemma in the first place. Because probably it's confusing to a lot of people. It's even confusing to me, and I'm the one having the dilemma. And the problem is, I have a good problem, and sometimes a good problem is more frustrating than a bad problem because a good problem, you're like, there's all sorts of conflict that comes along with it. And sorry, this may get a little wordy, so you might want to go down into YouTube there and or wherever you're watching this and bump the speed of the video up. You can change it from normal to like 1.5 or 1.25. I do that for a lot of videos just so I can watch more. So you're wondering, what the heck are you doing, Rickets? How come your lighting has got this dilemma? You've got this XR30 G4 Pro Radion that you won. Just be happy. The thing is, I wasn't happy with it. And there's a lot of reasons why. So first, I'll just tell you how I got rid of the XR30 Pro. So I tried to sell it online in forums, locally, nationally, and I was getting no fair offers on the light for what it was. But I did get a very fair offer from a local fish store at store credit. So instead of waiting for someone to buy it for cash, I was sitting there going, I'm probably never going to get what I want for it cash. So I need more equipment, and I have no corals in my tank. So it's like, well, I'm going to have to buy corals eventually for my reef tank. So let's just bring it in there, trade it in. And he was able to get me any light I wanted. And so yeah, I went that way. Because these lights, they have a manufacturing date. They devalue with time. And the longer I were to wait to sell this light, the less value it would be. So I pulled the pin and I went and traded it in. Now, my original plan was to get some AI primes to cover the tank, or some T5s. But after some research and some thought, I backed off on that, and I went back to my original lighting plan for my aquarium because that's what I want. Right, this is hopefully my forever tank. If it burns down and crashes for whatever problem that could come along and kill the tank, I'm going to resurrect it. I'm going to keep on going with this tank because it's my forever tank. And that's just how it is. This is hopefully my forever home, my forever tank, and my forever home is kind of how I'm thinking. So I want to put equipment in it that will last 10 years, 20 years. I want to be looking at this tank with great esteem for a very long time. And what I look at will be illuminated by a lighting system that I choose. I can skimp and do value buys on the skimmer because I'm not looking at that. As long as it skims the water, I don't care. I don't care if it has a double-ended pump or some extra special air intake or some kind of window of awesomeness into the skimmer cup. I don't need that. It doesn't matter. I don't need a titanium heater. Glass ones work fine. I don't need like a $700 return pump when a $100 return pump will do the same thing. Like and for that price, I could buy a backup. Like it doesn't make sense. And then on top of it, I can DIY a lot of stuff to save money to get the tank going. But lighting is a category that you're gonna want to buy something that looks good to your eye. Now, certainly at a certain point, budget always comes in. Like if you just can't afford a Kessel or anything like that, or an Ecotech, you just can't afford it. That's just life. I see a lot of YouTube videos that lucky them, but they're putting $40,000-$50,000 worth of Ecotech Radions above their tanks. I'm sitting there, I'm flabbergasted at seeing those videos. I'm like, what? That guy's got like 35 Ecotechs above his tank. Wow. And so anyway, this is the system I'm going with. I love the Kessels. I saw them on tanks. I see them on videos. They're very special, and I'll get to why they're special in a second. So my original plan, and what brought me back to my original plan, was I was always going to have coverage LEDs, And in the middle, I was always going to have a mover. So if you go back to my old videos, I always call them the coverage LEDs. And I think in one of the videos, I even say I was going to do a special experiment with lighting on my tank and see how it goes. And I was going to let people know in time. And the experiment was I was going to put a Kessel on a light mover. And the reason why I was going to try that is because if there's a lot of grow ops and stuff out there and they use light movers on their plants and they say they get increased growth with a light mover over their plants as opposed to having a single source light that is always on for big periods of time. Now we kind of create a light mover effect with our dimming cycles. So we are already doing that. But what if you could save the initial sticker shock on buying 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 lights for our aquarium? If we can just move one single one across the tank with a $8 motor, right? It makes sense to me. So therefore, you can get the aquarium up and running with less money initially, and you can get things going. And maybe if you can make it look good and pleasing to you, then that's awesome. And then you use cheaper LEDs or T5s or something to illuminate the entire tank. So a lot of people already do this. So a lot of people already have supplemental T5s with an LED pendant. So they're already doing this. But instead of having multiple LED pendants, I'm having one that just moves slowly across the tank. I don't know if it's going to work. It may work. It may not work. And that's what the experiment was about. And I'm resurrecting that experiment. Now you might be thinking there, well, why not the Ecotech, Rickets? Why not use the Ecotech XR30 Pro as the light that moves across the tank? I tried that. I don't like the look of the Ecotechs. I don't. Now, take this with a grain of salt. This is my opinion. I don't like what's under the hood in the Ecotech. So at the same time that I got that, I won that Ecotech XR30 G4 Pro. The local fish store where I got this stuff, he had a bunch of broken down Gen 3s sitting on a shelf, and he knew I was good with electronics, so he said, hey Rick, you mind taking these things and seeing if you can fix them? They're out of warranty. It's going to be too much money for me to fix them. So I was like, sure, I'll take a look. So I took them home, I opened them up, and all an Ecotech Radion is just like all the other ones, is you've got your LEDs, they're regular LEDs sitting on a piece of aluminum. Like usually with hobbyists, they'll buy like one LED on a star. This is just one big round LED with, I think, 26 or whatever chips on it, and that's thermal pasted onto a heat sink. And then there's a wire going from their puck to a driver bank, which has switches connected to it that goes to a power supply. And then for an extra $150+ you can buy their Reef Link to have Wi-Fi controllability, which is absolutely disgusting. And Kessel, you're guilty of this too. That is absolutely disgusting. That dongle should be at most $50. You guys and me both know that it's like $3 worth of hardware and like $5,000 worth of R&D in terms of software to get that thing working. I could myself build a dimming solution to both the Ecotech and the Kessel using a Raspberry Pi. So for $20. And if you're buying this stuff on bulk, I don't even know why they don't have it built in. Like you can buy an Amazon black box LED that has Wi-Fi right now. AI primes have had Wi-Fi and Bluetooth forever. The fact that they don't have that functionality in these really expensive fixtures, oh, that irks me big time. Like that's a mark on your soul for greed. That's not cool, especially when you come release it at 150 whatever dollars. Like that's vicious. So anyway, I digress. Don't get me going on that. So why not the Ecotech? Well, the Ecotech technology, what's in there, I'm looking at these broken ones. I'm looking at the one that I have, thinking, oh, well, it could go the way of these. But now I'm sure some of the new fixes on the G4s were to address some of the problems of the G3s, the switches being one of them, I noticed right away. And then there were some other changes too. But because of the technology, most of it's proprietary in the Ecotechs, you can't really fix them. Like without having spare parts, working spare parts, you can't really fix those. What I did see, even though the build quality is very, very high on the Ecotechs and the chances of them dying are very, very low, my opinion, this is my opinion, I find the Ecotechs, the Radions, to be a lot of gimmick. There's a lot of gimmick involved with that fixture. Do I see that with the Kessel? Now, I haven't even opened the box, but in my thought process for what the Kessel is, and I'm not getting paid for them to say this, the Kessel is special. And let me explain why. I could reverse engineer and create an Ecotech Radion or pretty much any other LED light that's on the market right now. The only one I could not reverse engineer and create a similar product with what's available to me is a Kessel light. It has a very special LED bank that creates a special effect in the aquarium, a very natural effect that corals seem, from what I can tell from my reviews, to respond to very well. And I was looking for that special. I wanted that special look in my forever tank. I wanted that wide angle lens to be able to blend the moving light into my panels as best as possible. And I could not get that with the Ecotech, with the technology and the orientation of their light. It's not a bad light. But even if you look at the Gen 4s, they're trying to make their lenses like the Kessel lenses. But it's never going to work because of the orientation of the LEDs. But like they got a more bulbous lens, very kind of similar-ish to the Ecotechs. The next step would be to have just one bulbous lens, like the Kessel, but they would have to move their LEDs closer together. And because of the way heat is created in the LEDs, I don't know if they could do that with conventional LEDs. They may have to start printing their own LED banks like Kessel does. And then you're basically choosing between a Kessel and a Kessel, but one's just called Ecotech at that point. So I'm resurrecting my original plan of going to the Kessel because I want the Kessel look. I want the Kessel tech. Is this a perfect light? No, it's still subject to everything that electronics are subject to, especially LED lights. And that's primarily heat. You know, heat is the killer of electronics. That's why we put cooling on electronics, especially with LEDs, where the more power you drive through it, the hotter they get. And then that heat then makes the plastic on the chips brittle. And then it makes the solder wear out and go brittle and fall apart. And then eventually things will degrade because heat degrades electronics. So does just the saltwater environment we're putting these suckers in. Like, let's be fair. Saltwater is hard on electronics. And you splash it or just, you know, being in the vicinity, little bits of salt water can get into the system, especially if there's air movement around it and stuff like that. So, you know, our stuff's going to degrade in time. Kessel seems to do a good job with their cooling. It also does a quiet job, which is why ultimately I didn't go with the AI primes. I think I was thinking about the AI primes and the T5s because I was so mad at this spotlight effect that the XR30 Pro was giving me because I couldn't orient it high enough. Like if you look at most tanks that have XR30 Pros, they've either got like a ridiculous amount of them and you're staring at $6,000 to $10,000 to $20,000 worth of Ecotechs covering a tank, or you're looking at them really high up. They're like 2-3 feet above the tank. I don't have that situation. What I'm creating is wide angle lights in a white reflective hood that punches all that light, wide angle light, down into the aquarium for a very even look. Now, with this experiment of moving this Kessel across the tank, like a grow light, like a plant grow light, it may not work. It may not work. That's what an experiment's about. And if it doesn't work, I'll buy another A360X or maybe 2 more A360X. But by the time I realize it doesn't work, I will have saved up the money for them. The other thing is I may do that anyway, even if it does work. Like, even if it does work, I may be sick and tired of the moving of the light, of the spotlight effect that I'm probably even going to get with the Kessel. It'll probably be less because of the way the light comes out of a Kessel. But we'll see. I'll do an update video on that. But I may end up buying more Kessels anyway, just because I want to get full coverage all the time, and it'll look more uniform over time. So we'll see. The Kessels are a new light, but they're not super new. So a lot of people have had them for a long time. They've got good reviews. So excited about that. Whereas like the AI HD primes, the new ones are new, so there may be problems with them. They also have a loud fan. They have a very similar LED setup as the Ecotech Radion, so I'd probably get the same spotlighting effect with their lights. And so I went back to the Kessel because based on my knowledge of the technology, I'm a bit of a fan. I'm a bit of a Kessel fanboy. I like them. They are special. They are definitely special. So that's the lighting. I've got money left over from the whole trade in and getting the Kessel to buy corals now. I've got a couple new corals. My first coral's in the tank, so I'll do a video on that. And I have money left over for more corals if these things survive and everything goes well. So yeah, that's where I am. That's the lighting dilemma all sorted. Definitely leave comments, questions. Sorry if I've offended anyone that is all Ecotech lights all the way. I just find them to be, there's a lot of gimmick, even though it's high finishes, good finishes. Uh, I find the most value special light on the market to be the Kessels. And yeah, later.